What is going on, everybody? Today we are going to be doing another mock draft, another draft to prepare you for your drafts coming up in August. We're going to be doing these throughout the lead up to draft season. So subscribe to the channel, click the like button if you like this content. And without further ado, here we go. All right, so we're going to be doing a mock draft on Sleeper. And I know there's going to be nobody in here. It's just going to be bots. We will be doing mock drafts with people, but I'm not, BDGE yet. I aspire to be, but I can't just drop a link in a Discord and fill a mock draft within minutes. It takes some doing. So we will have some of those on the channel. But for now, I think this is a good exercise because I actually do think Sleeper's redraft ADP isn't horrible. So we'll see how this goes. This is an experiment for me too. So we'll go ahead and start the draft here and see and we're going to be picking out of the 11 spot today. We did a mock draft where we picked out of the 3rd spot using the draft wizard over on Fantasy Pro. So go check that out. That's live on the channel right now. But we're just going to start this up. And well, I guess before we start, 1 quarterback PPR, start 10, start 10, 2 quarterbacks, 3 wide receivers, and 3 flex spots. So nothing crazy here to start out. So let's just go ahead and start the draft and click OK. So we see Jahmyr Gibbs go first. That's a little crazy. Jamar Chase falls to the 4th spot. Bijan, the 5th spot. So this is a little wild to me. And I honestly can't believe that Malik Neighbors is sitting there for us to take at pick 11. So I think that's a smash pick. But I think, Jahmyr Gibbs at 101, Barkley at 102. I mean, it's not horribly insane, I guess, but it's probably not what's going to happen. I'm going to leave it. If there's something completely egregious, I might fix it. I don't know. We'll see. We'll just see how this goes. But I think Malik Neighbors, just from a target share perspective, is absolutely set up to smash. The quarterback situation is better than it was last year. I think, you look at the target share last year was 34.9% for Malik Neighbors, and I think it could be that. And at least 30% is what we're looking at because there's just absolutely nobody there. And you also have fail safes at quarterback. If Russell Wilson isn't good, Jameis Winston is our fantasy football wet dream of a quarterback. They also drafted Jackson Dart if one or both of those guys is bad or gets hurt. So we're just going to go ahead and take one of my favorite players to draft, and that would be Malik Neighbors. And it's also in line with the strategy that I prefer in general in fantasy football. I like to lock down my wide receivers early and often. And now there's a lot of players that I like here. I like Drake London. I like AJ Brown at wide receiver. There's also Devonta Chan, whose life probably became easier after the Jonnu Smith trade. We could also lock down our tight end in Brock Bowers. So there's a lot of different options that we could where we could go. But I honestly think, just purely speaking from a target share perspective, Drake London, what are his competition for targets? There's Darnell Mooney is there. He's a little bit underrated, if you ask me. Kyle Pitts, sure, there could be a resurgence there, but Drake London is another one of these guys that could have a sub 30% target share. So he's an interesting pick, but AJ Brown, man, is just a stud, and you can make arguments against AJ Brown. I understand that the Eagles don't pass the ball a ton. In fact, they passed the ball the least amount last year in the NFL, but I have to believe that reverts back to, maybe they aren't the least amount, or maybe they don't pass the ball the least amount. Maybe they're 26th or 27th in passing or something like that. So I'm torn between those two guys. That's who I'm torn between. And you know what? I'm just going to go for the upside swing with the volume and go Drake London and lock down our wide receivers to start. So Brock Bowers immediately comes off the board. And then we have Christian McCaffrey, Josh Jacobs, Achan, Bucky Irving, McConkey. I don't see anything too egregious here. We do have the quarterbacks coming off maybe a little bit early, so that is something. So we are back on the clock here, and there's a couple players, man, in this build of ours, it looks like we're going 0 RB because I don't really love too many of the running backs that are here right now, at least at value, but there are some wide receivers that I think are just smash picks. And one of those is Devontae Adams in that offense. So we're gonna go with Devontae Adams and hope, yes. And we're just gonna get my boy. I had a feeling this could happen, Rashee Rice, and just go straight wide receivers and fill up our flex spots with those wide receivers in a PPR league. The strategy in a PPR league here is probably one of my favorites, going 0 RB, and we'll see what comes back to us. Some interesting picks. Travis Hunter is going to be a guy to keep an eye on, and Kenneth, of course, Kenneth Walker goes one pick before we can take him. That I had my eye on him for sure. Travis Hunter, getting back to him at the 506, that's going to be a polarizing one. And I am on the side of taking the chance on Travis Hunter this season. I get it. It's going to be a risk. He's going to be a rookie. They're likely going to be playing him at least some on defense. But I don't think you take a player number 2 overall if you don't have a concrete plan for him. And again, I know we're trusting the Jacksonville Jaguars, which is really hard to do, but I think Travis Hunter is just that damn good. So I think that they're going to play him primarily at wide receiver. And if that's the case, you could have made a real case for him as the 101 in rookie drafts this year. But enough of that. We're on the clock. And there are, this is part of the reason why I love going with the wide receiver early approach, is because there are still, there's a ton of running backs that have come off the board, and I get it. We're drafting against bots. So if you don't like that, I apologize, but this is just an exercise. As I said at the top, we will have more drafts in the future with hopefully live people in them. But man, RJ Harvey feels like a smash pick here. Quinshon Judkins feels like a smash pick. I could go either direction. I also like Isaiah Pacheco. And again, this is why I love going with a wide receiver early approach, because especially in a PPR league, because you lock down those wide receivers. I still think there's some good options at running back. And so I'm just going to go RJ Harvey here and trust in the fact that I believe that Sean Payton finally has his guy at running back. And you look historically at Sean Payton offenses, they target the bejesus out of their running backs. And then on the way around, I love Pacheco this year. Quinshon Judkins is another guy. Trevion Henderson. There's so many good options still. I wish I had a couple picks here. So just for some stability, I think I'm going to go Pacheco. Now, if this were a best ball league, I'd probably go with the upside pick and Trevion Henderson. But just to lock down some security, and I know Pacheco was hurt last season, and that's primarily why he's falling in drafts, in my opinion, is because, he came back from the broken leg too soon. And I think we're going to see much closer to a 2023 version of Pacheco than the 2024 version of Pacheco, because if you look at the first 2 games of the season, he was performing just fine. Maybe not up to ADP, but he was performing adequately in his role. So we have our 4 wide receivers, just studs, and then we lock down 2 running backs. And so we're up on the clock here yet again. And this range feels kind of meh to me, to be honest. There's a lot of people or a lot of players that are relatively the same. I'm pretty much out on Cooper Kupp this year. And, it's another reason for you to subscribe to the channel, like the videos, which means more than you would know if you like the videos, subscribe to the channel. It tells me that you either like or don't like what we're doing here. So that means a ton to me. We're gonna have videos on, must draft players, players I'm avoiding. So you're gonna want to stay tuned for that. But I mean, there's a lot of players here that I could consider. I like Khalil Shakir. I know some people don't feel that way, but we are pretty stacked at wide receiver. Depth doesn't hurt anything, and we have a couple flex spots still open, so that's a consideration. Probably out on Brandon Ayuk just because I don't love investing heavily in injured players. I just it's not something I typically look to do. And man, as I'm scrolling down this list, I think I'm just gonna click the button on Khalil Shakir because when you think about that Buffalo offense, I can't believe that James Cook is gonna score 18 touchdowns again. And I also think the offense is still gonna be good. So if I think the offense is gonna be good, that they're gonna score touchdowns, and I don't think James Cook is gonna score 18 touchdowns, then those touchdowns have to go somewhere. And the Bills re-signed Khalil Shakir. They did not add a pass catcher of note either in the draft or free agency. So I have to believe that he's going to be a big part of their offense. Now, the $1 million question is he going to be used more like Cole Beasley in the offense? Because up to this point, that's how they've used him as a slot wide receiver. He had 100 targets last year. He led the team in targets. But I really believe that there is a chance that they could increase his usage. I mean, they almost have to have somebody step up. Either they're going to be a run heavy team like they were last year. I mean, Josh Allen attempted the fewest pass attempts since I think 2019. It's either 2019 or 2020. I'm going off the top of my head, so I apologize. But Khalil Shakir is one of those guys I'm willing to take a bet on. I mean, I think worst case scenario, you're looking at a high end wide receiver 3, low end wide receiver 2. So I do think that there's a floor with, like I said, a decent amount of upside, and I'm fine clicking the button there in round 7. And man, I think too, I'm gonna go with another potential breakout guy. Either him or you know what? I'm just gonna go with old reliable and bet on Stephon Diggs yet again this season. Maybe he's over the hill. I don't know, but I think him with Drake May, and I know that there's been some weird offseason stuff. There honestly was a lot of players that I could have chosen between. I was considering Ricky Pearsall. I was considering Juwan Jennings, one of the San Francisco wide receivers, which I'm in on both of those guys. And looking back on it, maybe that should have been the pick. But hey, what do you? I have no problem with picking Stephon Diggs. So we are extremely strong at wide receiver. We have Khalil Shakir, Stephon Diggs, and we have chosen Malik Neighbors, Drake London, Devontae Adams, Rashi Rice at the start. We could be looking to potentially go quarterback, although I think that there's a lot of good quarterbacks still left on the board. So I mean Justin Fields. I mean, I just talked a bunch of smack on Justin Fields in our latest episode of the Dynasty Roundtable, which will be dropping in a couple days, depending on when I drop this video. Yeah, it should be a couple days. But man, Josh Downs is staring us right in the face, and I think I think I'd be sprinting, even though he would slide into one of our bench spots. I think I'd be sprinting to take Josh Downs here. So I'm just going to do that. And so we come back around, and there's still some wide receivers that I really like. And, a quarterback, I think maybe we just keep pushing quarterback. Matthew Golden is interesting. Emeka Egbuka for just like depth, because you can never have enough depth in fantasy. Running backs, though, these guys are starting to dry up pretty quick. And there's a running back on the board that I think has serious touchdown upside, and that's Jordan Mason. So I'm going to go with him at the 10th spot. as we continue to push tight end and quarterback down the board, which I'm totally fine with, by the way. I'm totally okay with pushing tight end and taking just multiple stabs on a starting tight end. If you don't get one of the first few tight ends, just historically speaking, you can wait. You can wait on the tight end. And so now there are, we see a bunch of quarterbacks come off the board. That's okay. We have, a backup running back, couple backup wide receivers. So at this point, I don't know how much further I want to push this. Tight end. I mean, I honestly, I would be okay with rolling out Zach Ertz or Hunter Henry. I know that sounds disgusting, but just look at what Zach Ertz did last year, and then Ben Sinnot's going to be free. So if he gets hurt, you could pick him up and just stream tight end. I think that's probably the direction that we're trending here. So with this pick, I'm looking at quarterback, and I think that there's a quarterback on the board, a couple of quarterbacks on the board that have serious upside. And one of those quarterbacks is JJ McCarthy. And that's going to be my pick here. I mean, I could wait and stack with Michael Penix. But in a one quarterback, well, not a one quarterback, in a 12-team league that's not best ball, I don't necessarily need to stack. So I'm going to go with McCarthy and lock down my quarterback. And the reason I chose McCarthy and the reason I think he's just a steal at his ADP is because of the Kevin O'Connell factor. I mean, I believe JJ McCarthy is more talented than Sam Darnold. And so you throw him in that environment with a year to learn. I think he has maybe not the upside and the talent of a Patrick Mahomes, but could you get Alex Smith plus production out of him in Kansas City? I think so. I think you could get out of him what Kirk Cousins was able to put up in his time with some mobility, So the other quarterback I was considering there was Trevor Lawrence, and he's shot up my board for obvious reasons. I mean, they add Travis Hunter with second pick overall. Having Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter is just an insane duo with an offensive coordinator, or former offensive coordinator as a head coach that was able to help Baker Mayfield do what he did last year. So I think it's going to be wheels up for both of those guys, and I'm fine. Like those are two late round quarterbacks that I'm absolutely smashing the button to draft. So tight end again, I think we're going to take the approach that we're just going to stream tight end. And we're going to hope to hit on a tight end later. And there's a backup running back here that I think has a ton of value. Well, a couple of them. Isaac Guerendo and Ray Davis and Trey Benson. I'd be fine with either one of those picks, but I think I'm going to go with Guerendo and go with the upside because, and I know Rachaad White was on the board. I've just kind of soured on Rachaad White, and you tell me what you think of Rachaad White in the comments. Probably that was the value pick going with Rachaad White, but Guerendo's the upside play. If McCaffrey, even if they pace out McCaffrey, which I don't know if they're going to do based on how they've handled him in the past. If McCaffrey gets hurt, Guerendo is the immediate backup. And having that running back in the 49er system has proven to be extremely valuable in the past. And it's a position that we're weak on. So we're definitely going to take, or I wouldn't say weak. I mean, we have RJ Harvey, Pacheco, Jordan Mason. I think all of those guys are going to be producers this year, but it's definitely a position that we're going to take multiple shots on to try to really nail one of those RB2 positions and really get some depth. So we're back on the clock, and I do think that there are a couple tight ends, and this might be the range where we just look to grab some of these tight ends. And I was kind of torn on this, but I think Isaiah Likely does have a lot of upside. So we're going to take him. And then I'm just going to nail down another tight end with Hunter Henry. So hopefully one of those two guys right off the bat we can stream and fill that position and maybe just play the waiver wire. Although this is a 16 team, I guess 16 is pretty 16 roster spots and redraft is pretty standard. So that's how we're gonna play that. And then I think with these last two picks, I mean, we're good at wide receiver, more than good. So I think we're gonna look to get some real depth at running back. And I'm looking here at the position, and there's definitely a few running backs that I wouldn't mind rostering. And I think Will Shipley, he's at the top of ADP here. I know they have AJ Dillon now in Philadelphia, but I don't think he's a perfect match with what they want to do offensively. If Saquon Barkley goes down, I know envisioning that world is not it's not convenient for anybody. But if it happens, I think Will Shipley, as a pass catching running back, could see a lot of run in that offense. And now we're staring down the barrel of, DJ Giddens, Brashard Smith, Marshawn Lloyd. And Marshawn Lloyd, I think that there's a decent chance he's the handcuff there in Green Bay. I've been hearing good things throughout the offseason. I was considering Kyle Monangai, DJ Giddens were the other two guys I was looking at there. So let's review this real quick. So this is the team. This is the recap. Thank you again for watching. Don't forget to click like if you liked it, subscribe if you want more of it. We're going to be doing these mock drafts all throughout the lead up to your draft to get you ready in the best way that we can. We have Malik Neighbors, Drake London, Devontae Adams, Rashi Rice. Just my PPR wet dream of a start there. Love that. And then we fill the running back position with a pass catching running back with some upside in RJ Harvey. I get it. He's a rookie. There's some uncertainty there with Sean Payton, but I like that pick quite a bit. We were one pick away from Kenneth Walker, who I would have preferred, if I'm being honest. Isaiah Pacheco gives us a stable floor, I think, as our RB2. I don't think that Kareem Hunt or Elijah Mitchell or Brashard Smith is either one of those guys. I don't think is going to beat him out for that starting role. And I think his opportunity share is going to be upwards of 60% or more. And then we go right back to the wide receiver well. And if there's one criticism that you could have of this draft, it's that we invested very, very heavily into wide receiver, and it's a strength of ours. But you know what? I like wide receiver being just an insane strength for a team in a PPR league. So I'm okay with it. You could argue that maybe we should have taken more shots at running back, but I'm okay with this team in general. Maybe one of these, if I could go back and do it all over again, maybe one of these wide receivers is a running back, but I think I'm nitpicking. Jordan Mason is somebody that I'm going to be drafting a ton of at his current value. I think he has a lot of touchdown upside. And then JJ McCarthy, again, a quarterback in that Kevin O'Connell system. If Sam Darnold can do what he did last year, if Kirk Cousins can do what he did in that offense, I think JJ McCarthy has more upside than either one of those guys. So I love taking a shot on JJ McCarthy this year. Isaac Guerrero, if anything happens to Christian McCaffrey, there's a lot of contingent upside. And then, we're just going to be trying to fill our tight end position. We're trying to cash in on one of those guys that could be a top 6, top 8, sneak into that range. We saw Jonnu Smith do it last year, so we're trying to find that streaming gold tight end. And then we go right back to the handcuff well with Will Shipley and Marshawn Lloyd to round it out. Let us know how we did. Click like, click subscribe, and until next time, be good, everybody, and we will see you later.